Oh, this? Oh, that's just my emotional support screw. It shows up when, things are a bit bad. It's a M1.6 by 2 if you're interested. Fomapan 100 Classic. It is what it says it is on the tin. It's a classic emulsion, basic, everyday film. Now this is from obviously Foma. They are often considered one of the more budget options, and they deliver a lot on the quality of that. Now, just like the other Fomapan films, so other than Fomapan 400, it comes in pretty much every format that you would want. 135, 120, 45, 57, 810, and a couple other things here and there. It means it's great if you're a multi-format shooter. You can buy the one emulsion and you can have it in basically every camera that you own. There are a couple of little caveats with this. Number one, it is not a DX coded cartridge. So that means with some of your little point and shoots that only are able to read the DX code to set the ISO, this is not going to be very useful for you. It does strike me as a little odd. I don't know why Foma, they've already got one sticker on the cartridge, why they don't put like a DX sticker or go to all of the length of actually DX coding on the cartridge themselves. I'm sure it's a cost saving measure somehow, considering that the Ortho 400 now only comes in a plastic canister. So I'm sure they're trying to save where they can and keep in that budget friendly area. One of the other things that you should be aware of with 100 Classic is that, like the other standard 100, 200 and 400 films, the reciprocity, or if you go super fast or super slow shutter speeds, really starts to affect this film pretty quickly. And when I say super fast, anything above 1/1000th of a second does need a correction factor, and anything under a half of a second. Compared to a lot of other films, this is something that is coming into effect very, very quickly. Now, just a heads up, I've actually used this film before, and I do like it. I think it's a great budget option, but if you're after the absolute finest of grain that you can find in a 100 ISO film, this is not the finest possible, but it is definitely the most budget-friendly fine grain film you can find. Now, I've previously used this in developers like ID11 or Xtol. Fomadon XL is another developer I've used this with, and I think in these sort of classic developers, this film works really well. I think that's what it was really most suited for. I think maybe HC110 might be another one that works really well. But when you start getting into, your Rodinals and your other sort of more exotics in some ways, it can have some interesting effects with this film. The other thing to be aware of is, particularly with larger formats, because of how its anti-halation layer works, sometimes you will get green liquid come out in your development, or if you pre-wash, you will get this green anti-halation layer. It's shouldn't be a problem at all. However, some people do say that it interferes with their processes a little bit. I've had not too many issues with that. The issue I have had with Fomapan 100 is actually getting a red cast to my negatives. This can be very difficult, particularly if you want to optically print your photos. But I don't want to be too negative on this film. I have got pretty good results with it in the past, and I would say if you're very budget conscious, this is perhaps one of the best budget options, particularly if you're a multi-format shooter. So with that in mind, I decided, classic film, let's go with a classic camera. So this is my somewhat newly acquired Contax RTS from 1975. Very exciting. This is actually the first outing I'll do with it. And at this point, it's where things start falling apart. I went out to my local coffee shop, as I usually do, and I think if I'm trying to make an advertisement for some kind of black as your soul coffee, this might be a good option. What's going on here? Now, I think I'd need a little bit further testing to be absolutely certain, but definitely we have overdevelopment happening here. It has gone very, very contrasty very, very quickly. If we take a look at some other negatives that I've taken at a similar time, so this is Fomapan 200 compared to 100, we can see that our leader is completely black. Now that's absolutely a sign of overdevelopment, there's no two ways about that. But also it could be a sign that we have something with the speed of our film matching to our development. I won't go into that because that's a lesser effect, and the main thing on display here is that we are absolutely overdeveloped. So I'll talk a little bit about that while some other pictures just roll on by here. But I mean, we had a pretty good run of taking photos until this one. I normally just look up sometimes on the Massive Dev chart or Devit or Darkroom Solutions, and that can often get me close enough to an answer. And for the most part, I'm pretty happy with that as a result. Unfortunately, because we're not testing, we're not doing clip tests or, a couple of rolls and testing it out, and the fact that I'm using a less common developer and a less common processor with rotary processing, that sometimes I just do have to take a bit of a wild guess. Now, I did, after I developed the film, find a couple of things that people have written which would have been a better indicator of what I should do, but as you'll see as we go along with the series, that's not always available either. So sometimes you get some failures. Just enjoy those as they go by. Now, I don't want you coming away from this thinking that I don't like Fomapan, or even that Fomapan isn't possible to get good results using the process that I've outlined. This does lead me on to a point where I've been considering for a while that I should probably go back and re-examine a couple of films. I'm thinking it might be worthwhile, obviously doing Fomapan 100, but I could also consider redoing Ferrania's P30, and who knows, maybe even P33 will be available in Australia by then. So once I get through these films, I think I'm going to go back and retest a couple, but I will now show you some of the results I've gotten in the past from using particularly Fomadon XL, which is an XTOL or XTOL-like developer. And as you can see, there's, obviously you can get much better image quality out of it if things are exposed and developed correctly. Well, I'm very disappointed with these results because obviously it takes a lot of time and effort to make a video like these, or even time and effort to go out and take photos. This is just part of what analog photography is, and also the nature of me being very flippant with how I develop these things and just trying so many films in such a short amount of time. Well, we're going to leave it there for this week, and we'll move on to our next film. I'm excited to get started on something new, and hopefully it won't fail like this one has. Okay, Fomapan done. What's next? Get me a Pan 400. Finally, a fast film.